and gentlemen, today we'll be talking about how the Nigerian armed forces and the Nigerian people successfully thwarted an attack that the JNIM Jamatu and Nusrat wa Muslimin have already claimed to be responsible for. The Nigerian people and the Nigerian armed forces today they stood beyond all odds and they were able to defeat the imminent threat. Ladies and gentlemen, this was a preemptive opportunity because um, it would have been very, very catastrophic for the Nigerian. But the Nigerian armed forces stood tall. You know, what the Western media and Western organization were planning for was a total humiliation of the Nigerian security architecture today because I kind of look at how everything happened and I want to tell you categorically that the scripts were already written to be like, oh, another catastrophe, another debacle. Oh, what happened in January have just happened again. But the Nigerian armed forces and the Nigerian government, they took a very, very necessary step some weeks ago. And Western organization and the Human Rights Watch, you know them, they called this a violation of human rights in Niger Republic. They called the president a junta. They said a lot of things. But guess what? What did they do? The Nigerian hierarchy, they anticipated what happened yesterday. And they felt like, okay, how can we plan against this? Number one was a strict control against motorcycles. And they made sure that they created a perimeter, something that looked like a buffer zone between civilian buildings and the strategic infrastructure because the Diori Hamani Airport in Niger is not just a civilian airport. Behind the Diori Hamani on the left flank, you have the Diori Hamani strategic military base, where you have the air defense, you have most of the strategic capabilities that ensure air supremacy for the Nigerian. You have it located in this site. And the JNIM, supported by names that the Nigerian authorities have already mentioned. You know, they are very, very fast when it comes to mentioning names. Um, they were able to thwart this attack. How were they able to do it? They installed 350 CCTV cameras. And apart from that, they were able to, people cried, people complained. The government is taking away our homes. But if the government did not make that move at the time, it would have been a catastrophe today. And even with the preemptive measure they took, two civilians still paid the ultimate price. And today we're going to go into the analysis. We're going to go into the nitty-gritty of what happened today. So, ladies and gentlemen, it is at this point I want to welcome you all to the Android War Room. So, ladies and gentlemen, before we get forward, I want to tell you all to kindly help us to take this live stream out by hitting the like, share, subscribe button if you have not subscribed to the Android community. Now, officially, the statement we have from the communique says that this attack took place around 6 a.m. The JNIM released their own, statement before the attack. They released the statement around 5:50. By their own calculation and their Western partners, it was going to be a success because they planned it. Because in January, they infiltrated the Diori Hamani defenses through motorcycles. And the Nigerians created measures to stop that from happening. And they knew that the Nigerians were ready because of the preparations they've been making in anticipation of yesterday's attack. And what did they do? They used civilian taxis. And the type of taxis that take people to the airport, people that are trying to leave the country, so that the suspicion level will go down. This was not a coup d'etat. This was a sort of attack that reduced the air superiority of the nation's defense before a potential incursion. Because there was a planned incursion by mercenaries that were stationed in Chad, that were stationed in Libya, you know that type of attack. So that once the capabilities that will give the Nigerians a preeminent superiority was taken out, yeah, it's going to be pound for pound. But according to information, everything was thwarted before it even started. Now, according to information, at approximately 5:50 a.m. in the morning, 22 heavily armed terrorists. Now, this information is not really too discreet. They were not 22. But Western reporters said it's 22. No, it's not 22. They were 42 in numbers. Ladies and gentlemen. So, for the people that are reading reports from God knows where, I'm just trying to make the clarification now. They were not 22. They were 42. According to information, this attack has already been claimed by the JNIM. They made an attempt to breach the Diori Hamani International Airport. According to information, they came with RPG launchers. They came with AK-47. Now, according to reports, they came with precisely 11 AK-47 rifles, 2 RPGs, several hand grenades. They came with 80 cartridges, 44 fully loaded AK-47 mags. They came with 3 M80 ammunition belts with 1,000 cartridges. They came with M80 machine guns. They came with many other capabilities to destroy, and they did something that was very suicidal. They came with suicide vests just in case everything goes south. They were going to embrace their 72 virgin with so much joy, but that will not happen. We were speaking on the Andre community some couple hours ago that you have Mauritania coming in, you have this one and that one talking about security cooperation and bilateral, making such announcements in Paris, and now we were not even done talking. We had the live stream around 2, 3, and 6 the attack happened. You could perceive, you could feel the phone coming, that something was not right. The armies of murder, the hawks, they were approaching. You could perceive the smell that they were around. Because the whole, we want to have security agreement, it wasn't adding up. You were just in Paris. Making such announcements from Paris was like, now what I think about it was like, they want to preemptively introduce to the Alliance of Sahel people why they need France. And the premise would be this attack. So this attack would have been something like, we told you, the guys you are partnering with cannot do it, and we are still extending our arms to you, but that failed. And that was not just going to be a statement. I believe they've already scripted everything they were going to say, bringing some poetry, artistry to the whole thing. But it failed. It ended in shame. According to information, the Ministry of National Defense on Thursday, June 18, 2026, at around 6 a.m., stated that armed mercenaries under the pay of Emmanuel Macron. This is the communique that came out from the Nigerian government. They said armed mercenaries under the pay of the president of France, Emmanuel Macron, and some of who were wearing explosives, attempted an incursion into the terminal of the Niamey Diori Hamani Airport using an urban transport vehicle. According to information, the swift response of the defense and security forces made it possible to neutralize the attackers before they made it through the terminal. The provisional toll of the machinery, according to information, 13 Nigerian martyrs were recorded. 11 security personnel, 2 civilians got, unlucky. And according to information, 22 of the JNIM elements were neutralized on the spot, and 20 others were arrested. Now listen, several hours after this attack failed, the Nigerians came out with a report stating clearly that they were funded by the president of France. How about if we say that there's a possibility that among the 20 that were captured, some of them must have revealed who their handlers were? That aside, this is the second time the name of Emmanuel Macron is flying when it comes to the destabilization and the evil plot towards destroying the peace of the Nigerian people. It seems as though that uranium can be very, very important. Because why would you want to do all of this? For what purpose? To what end? According to the information that we received, the allies of the Nigerian forces were not involved in this operation. Who are the allies? The Russian African Corps that were present in the Diori Hamani, they were not involved because they were not even needed. Do you get what I mean? It was how fast the Nigerian forces were able to quench the attack. According to the locals reported that they heard a thunderclap from the explosion of one of the elements who, after they were overwhelmed, had no other option but to detonate his suicide vest. So people heard a loud sound, boom. Nah, they were already sabotaged at that point. You see, when you look at everything that is going on right now, yesterday's attack was the West trading their credibility for the publicity of the Nigerians, because that was another proof in the pudding that Niger Republic has been able to hone their security sovereignty. Because this is a contest for who makes the decision when it comes to your security. Who signed the deals? Who procure your equipment? Who determine what lethality you can use and what lethality you cannot use? Ladies and gentlemen, I want to remind you that this was the reason why when the French forces were initially in Niger Republic, what did they do? They were training the local forces with mahogany sticks. And when they want to shoot, they make noise with their mouth. Boom, 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 boom. That's how the security forces were shooting. So funny, right? According to information, when the Nigerian contacted foreign partners, they had to report back to Paris. Then Paris will look at what they were requesting for, and Paris will look at what they have in their reserve, the fake figure that they have in their reserve. You know that everything they have in their reserve belongs to these people. Then they will say, all right, we think the lethality of this capability is too dangerous. You cannot be allowed to procure this capability. And the question is, Who are they even trying to use this capability to defend, to protect? The people, the same people whose resources you plunder. So, ladies and gentlemen, without no further adulation, let's get into the details. The Nigerian armed forces intercepted these terrorists before they could reach their objective. In the firefight that followed, 22 terrorists were neutralized with brutal headshots and body shots. Every single one of them were eliminated, but the victory has a price. 11 of our soldiers made the ultimate sacrifice. These are the tragedies of victory. If you go to war, there are some personnel that every brother needs beside them. I believe that every army is not complete without those type of men. They are the ones that stand between the gates of life and death, that decides if everybody will come home. They pay the price. They are the ones that make sure that all the men can return back to their family in one piece at their own detriment. So, the Android community want to take this opportunity to pay our dear respects to these immortal brothers that decided that on this day, the plots of the enemies of Niger would not prevail. According to information, the Nigerians released a circular and they said, tonight we honor them. And tonight we also tell the truth about what is really happening in the Sahel. So, ladies and gentlemen, Western media won't tell you. They won't tell you about this report. All they want to tell you that Niger Republic is not stable, it's a red zone. Go and check the travel advisory of the West and, different statements like that. But they're lying because the proof is in the pudding. Yesterday was a serious proof. And ladies and gentlemen, let me take a little bit of your time. Mali just showed another level of professionalism by dishing out 72 virgin to 30 elements today. 30 of them, 30. And counting. And the search and destroy operation of these enemies of the state continues. This is not for optics. This is a story written in blood and bone with serious intensity. The intention of the enemy is not good. Imagine we're just talking yesterday and 6 a.m. So when I tell you that they don't sleep, and you don't sleep too, you know what we are saying. Can we say in the Android War Museum that the West are responsible for this attack? If when General Abdurrahman Chiani, the leader and the president of the Nigerian people, said that they need a huge perimeter between civilian residents and the Diori Hamani Strategic International Airport, and they called it out as a human rights violation, what would have been the Nigerian forces' rules of engagement if there was a close proximity between the civilian and the contact line between the terrorists and the forces of Niger? What would have happened to their decision making? It would have been great, but it would have been catastrophic. The story wouldn't have been written clearly. They would have claimed that, yeah, they won, but a lot of civilians were taken out at the same time. And the fact that they were wearing suicide vests, maybe they would have used the civilians as cover. Who knows what would have happened? This simply means that Niger Republic already has some strategic capability that is changing the calculus on the line of contact. And maybe they don't have a solution to it. Recently, there was an allegation on the Turkish group called Sedat They call them Syrian Turkish group. They said they are present in Niger. According to information, some report that they've been present in Niger since 2023. And they also affiliated the presence of the Sadat Special Forces. They affiliated it with the current journey of President Abdurrahman Chiani to Turkey, where he had a visit, where he had bilateral talks with the Turkish President Tayyip Erdogan. And they discussed extensively where the president of Niger showed his gratitude for the assistance that the Turkish nation have rendered towards Niger and the sovereignty of the entire Alliance of Sahel state. Because when all the Western Association Alliance, when they said that they were not going to give any weapon and they were not going to be attesting for the credibility of the Alliance of Sahel state to hold any sort of lethality to confront the threat in front of them, regardless of how you feel about Turkey, Turkey was one of those nations that decided that, you know what, we are going to help you out. All right. So, according to information, the civilians, the two civilians that were involved, were unlucky. And guess what? We have a couple highlights to show you to brighten up your mood. Yeah, because in the heat of the exchange, when men were falling like flies from the JNIM sect, there was a particular JNIM militia that got caught. You see, in situations like this, you don't get caught. I don't know who got to him first. Some said it was the civilians that got to him first. Some said it was the military that got to him first. But by the time, if you watch the video clearly, it was between the civilian and, you know, I mean, there was so much exchange. It was pummeled to the point that one of his eyes was closed and one was open. And because of what it looked like, I was forced to make a statement. I said, the opened eye, because I'm going to show you the image so that you can see. So, I mean, this is not what you look like when you are seeing 72 Virgin. This is what you look like when you see the second eye is completely closed. According to what we suspect, we want to tell you that categorically we believe that the closed eye, you know, was a strategic eye, because he was already seeing 72 Virgin with a closed eye, and the open eye he was still seeing the people, you know. Because if the military did not come for him too quickly, maybe the two eyes would have, you know, the two eyes would start seeing the 72 Virgins immediately. It was almost neutralized. The civilians were unforgiving. A lot of people talk about the Sahel as if, especially on French media, they talk about the Sahel as if General Abdurrahman Chiani took power and captured the entire nation. No, that is not the story. The people are on the same page with their government. The three clerics that was banned from preaching in Niger recently, it was the Council of Elders. It wasn't even the president. These people, they are working hand in hand. There's a lot of synergy. Niger is a unit. Burkina Faso is a unit. Mali is a unit. Ladies and gentlemen, you see, I cannot incorporate the military success of Mali into today's information because it's too much. According to credible information, let me just play around it. The Malian armed forces, they took a strategic choke point in the Kidal region today. Yeah. They took it while they decimated a lot of JNIM elements in the location. And according to information, there was a couple FLA elements that was neutralized alongside. It was part of this attack where they spotted uniform of the Saudi Arabian Special Forces. You saw the uniform. We have the uniform over here. So now a lot of people are asking the question that is Saudi involved? I don't think so. I don't think Saudi Arabia is involved. What do I think? If the JNIM and the FLA, if their handlers can supply them the exact copy of the Malian Armed Forces uniform, I think anybody's uniform can be found in the Sahel. I think anybody's tag can be found in the Sahel, except the uniform of France. When you see those uniforms, don't even try to make up any conspiracy. They are involved. They are involved. So, today is beautiful. It would have been every story we are telling right now could have been a different conversation, but do you remember this terrorist? His name is Ahmad Sisi, the JNIM terrorist that got caught in Mali by the Russians. This is him. This is Ahmad Sisi. Oh, hold on. This is Ahmad Sisi. Look at him. He looks so cute. Now he's reading books. Look at him. You know, it was under heavy influence of drugs. Now he's reading. Now he's just learning how to pronounce words. This is how bad it is. It's in the custody of the Russians. So Ahmad Sisi is now a newborn. Is now a newborn kid. You know, under under different rules of engagement. You won't be getting the 72 virgins. Now, according to information the Russians said, it is better for you to be to be in some prison in Mali than for you to be hiding from the Beretta, because it's unforgiving. Some of them were hiding under gravel. They got buried in the gravel. Serious professionalism with pure precision. Now, what do we have? According to information, there was a military operation in Burkina Faso that was led by the special forces of the Forces Oroya in Burkina Faso. This particular team was led by Captain Watao. But this is the first time I am getting a report that the Forces did not work as a unit. The Forces had to, some units were in a different region, another unit was in a different region. Authorities was delegated by Commander Watao, and it was a successful mission. Ladies and gentlemen, the professionalism of the Forces. If somebody tell me that Forces unit is a unit in Burkina Faso, I will be like, I'm looking at the way those guys move and the way they conduct their operation, and somebody say this is a unit in Africa, I will kind of be like, it's not possible. Ladies and gentlemen, I was thinking Watao was retired, but no. Men like that, they are not meant for some office share. They are not meant to be in the bedroom. Men like that, they are meant for the battlefield. And when you look at the guys in the Forces, you see, the Burkinabe Special Forces, they are for real. I've never seen their uniform on JNIM mercenaries. I've never, not one. Not one. That's to tell you that they are different. Like their uniform is different. The way they conduct themselves is different. Like every fire is methodic, is calculated. Like there was a guy that pulled the trigger and they said he released fire without order. I think they kind of blamed him that he allowed one of the elements to escape. So this is to tell you the level of professionalism you need to operate in units like that. This is the cream of the crop. So somebody will come and tell us that, oh no, after Bobo Dilaso and Ouagadougou, the rest of the no. These men are already in Petekoli. And like I've told you that the Ivorian border have been very quiet. You know why? Because that's the theater of operation of Captain Watao. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is just to let you know that Burkina Faso, Niger, and Mali, the situation is Delta Hotel. No matter what anyone tell you, it was a fantastic operation today all round. You see, the Nigerian attack today was supposed to be an highlight. Like everywhere, everybody is not supposed to sleep today. We're supposed to be talking about the attack in Diori Hamani. This is for Flo. Thank you so much for the donation. Thank you so much for the donation. But it's me. It's not Flo. So, like, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. We appreciate it. You see, they were supposed to make, they like, go and study the West. They like highlights. They like highlight. They were supposed to, like, in the next 1 week, they were supposed to distract everybody. And guess what happened? They traded their credibility for the publicity of Niger Republic. And you know why they traded their credibility? Because the name of Emmanuel Macron has been mentioned again. So to those people that are telling us, and do you know why Emmanuel Macron's name was mentioned? Because they have good intel that is somehow involved. President Abdurrahman Tiani's intelligence is not a 2 weeks intelligence. President Abdurrahman Tiani intelligence is like 3 months, 2 months, 4 months intel. And if you look at the plan that Niger Republic recently made, to create a buffer zone around the Diori Hamani infrastructure, you definitely know that President Abdurrahman Tiani has been in the know of this attack. So what should be the fate of the 20 elements that were captured? What should be their fate? Is the Nigerian prisoner full? What do you think should be done to them? Do you think they should be re-educated? Do you think they should be allowed to go through the Ahmad Sise rehabilitation program? Or do you think it's a waste of time using civilian tax to take care of this element who are ideologically lost? If a terrorist whose developmental psychological years were designed to eliminate their neighbors who ideologically they see as Kafiris, they're now in their 20s and 30s. But when they were 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 to, let's say, 15, they were trained to see every other person that is not even Muslim, that is not as radical as they are, as Kafri. Do you think you can rehabilitate such a person in 9 months or 12 months? For me to be an histopathologist, I spent 5 years, not my developmental years. I was already grown. I was very, very mature before I got into medical school. So I spent 5 years, then 1 more years, then you go for service, then you go for internship, then you start practicing to know not everything I know, but part of what I know and part of what I practice right now. So for almost 17 years of these people's life, they were either training them theoretically or practically, training them with capabilities to eliminate people without question, without reason, without vetting. Who is a Kafri or who is not a Kafri? Wearing suicide vests. Do you know how paranoid you have to be? How much hope you must have lost in humanity to wear a suicide vest? Detonate the vest. Only God knows what happens at the end of the day to them. And say that you will get 72 virgin after you detonate yourself and all of that. Ladies and gentlemen, for me, I think rehabilitation of this element is a waste of time. But you can kindly give us your opinion on what you think. If they do this in North Korea, if they do this in China, if they do this in the US, do you think they will be rehabilitated and reintegrated into the society? I don't know what will happen to them in places like the UK. I don't know. I don't know what will happen in Europe. I don't know what will be done to you if you carry out this type of attack. But I'm talking about some countries that have a no-nonsense, all right, methodology of approaching people that conduct this type of operations. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is where we'll drop the pen for today. We're not going to take your time. It's very, very important that we bring this news to you now that it's still on top of everything. So, by tomorrow, we'll be giving you more updates on the development of things. So in Niger, currently everywhere is Delta Hotel. They were not able to even scar the airport. According to information, operational duties did not stop and it continues. So ladies and gentlemen, this was a complete failure by the West. Not just their pawns, who some people call the JNIM. So at this point, I want to bid you all farewell. Representing the Android War Museum, it's your boy 72 Android signing out in Offset. But before I go, I want to appreciate everyone that contributes to the development, to the operational progress of this community. Thank you, and God bless you.